I know this guy out in New York you could talk to. His name's Matthew Milham, and he would be happy to come over your house and do all of this for
He
you.
works really cheap.
It's actually part of his contract here at Fine Home Building that he has to do this work for free. So if he tries to ask for money, tell him that he cannot have any. Welcome to the Fine Home Building Podcast, our weekly discussion of building, remodeling, and design, aimed at anyone and everyone who cares about the craft and science of working on houses. Over here is Matt Milham.
Hello.
Patrick McComb.
Hello.
And me, Justin Fink. I would say at this point, people are probably wondering what happened to Brian and Rob, so maybe we should address that.
Major
What did happen
meteorite
to them?
impact.
I haven't seen them. What's that?
Major meteorite impact.
Yeah. They made the number one editorial mistake of both being in the same place at the same time, and a bomb went off, and that's the end. No, Brian is moving. He's leaving us. He's going to move, and he's gonna work on a remote contract basis because his son is going to college, and so that's it for Brian. He's heading to live somewhere else outside of Connecticut.
Has he decided where?
He has not. As of this morning, he still has not decided where. But that's just Brian's style.
I could see him like getting a small RV and just hitting the road.
Yeah. Although I don't see him being able to deal with the gas consumption.
So he's going to get his RV and then park it somewhere. Park it somewhere.
Put it up on blocks. And Rob, it just happened to be that the timing worked out that Rob's also leaving at the exact same time, and he's going to work for an organization called Backcountry Hunters and Anglers to do some good work at maintaining access to public lands and that kind of thing.
Wilderness advocacy.
Yeah, that's right. So this is our group, and we will definitely keep everyone posted on Rob and Brian and what they're up to, and hopefully have them back on the show. But anyway,
we will miss them.
We will. Well,
I already do.
A little bit.
They have to leave first.
Yes. Yeah. Well, they're still. I just saw Brian this morning, so it's hard to miss
They are
him.
kind of lingering.
Yeah. Well, Taunton Press is a weird place. It's hard to get out of the gravitational pull of this place.
Oh, I know it.
They'll probably be back in 2 months. Brian will probably start over as an intern again. Anything new and wonderful in the world of your projects, boys?
No, other than I got to call the code officer and find out what I need to do as far as the electrical in that room that I joined.
What do you mean?
So I took a wall down between two very tiny bedrooms.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk to the code office first, and they said that the only thing that I need to get a permit for is for the electrical stuff. And I did move a couple switches and a couple J boxes. So, yeah.
So you're gonna hope that everything
the fines are too much. Yeah, nothing is really closed in. I mean, there's sort of drywall screwed up onto the wall, which I can take off very easily.
I think that's what they would describe as closed in. But.
Yeah. But I mean, that's as far as it got. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to remove that stuff.
But you're a homeowner, so you're totally allowed to work on your own electrical in Connecticut.
Yeah, but I'm in New York.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You're not in Connecticut.
Yeah, so it's a little bit different.
Is it different for you?
So
apparently it's different.
What is the difference? Tell them.
Reason number 792 not to live in New York.
Yeah, well, and it depends on where you are in New York, because where I lived prior to this, I could do almost anything and not have to get a permit.
On your own home.
On your own home. And not only that, but contractors out there, you didn't have to be licensed to be an electrician or a plumber in that county, but if you went one county over, which for me was like a 10-mile drive maybe, you had to be licensed to do all that stuff. So
there's situations like this all over the country.
Yeah, every jurisdiction is different. And so it didn't even occur to me when I tore that wall down that I should have to call the code officer. And then when I started to get to the point where I was putting everything back together, I was like, maybe I should have. And Patrick was like, yeah, probably check with him. And I was like, all right.
You guys call the code office way too much. If they can't see it from the road, I don't bother.
Yeah.
My code office is really easy to deal with. It would be foolish not to.
Well, they just want a little slice of the pie. That's the part that's kind of annoying. Or that you have to draw something up that you otherwise just want to start building.
See, I like living in a place where construction is monitored for safety, and so people aren't like dumping their effluent in streams. I value that.
Yeah.
Well, that was a leap between those two things, but
Well, that's what code enforcement is supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in this case, I mean, it's a safety issue. I mean, you see guys do electrical stuff wrong all the time.
Absolutely.
Like I was reading in the forums, and some guy was he was trying to figure out like why his circuitry wasn't working because he had wire nutted the neutral and hot together, and everybody it was like everybody should know the answer to that. He was like, shouldn't the current just go from one to the other?
Oh my God.
Oh Lord.
Yeah.
And the thing that's scariest to me about wiring is it often works even if it's insanely dangerous. So people don't have any idea that it's a problem.
Yes. Until it slowly heats up and smolders itself out.
Yeah. I was working on my neighbor's bath fan recently and discovered that she wanted to know why her fan and light were not working. And it turned out that a poor wire nut connection that had caused some arcing had actually melted the wire nut enough that
That's the exact thing that's happened
yeah.
to me in the past too.
and that she said that this guy was claimed to be an electrician who did this, and I was just like, that is criminal. He used the wrong size wire nut, and it came apart.
Yep. And I mean, it happens. I mean, I've done it. That has happened to me with the wire nut, and I'm usually very diligent about pre-twisting and putting the wire nut on, and I'm guessing this was either a wrong size wire nut or some instance where that didn't happen. And
just so people know,
it bites you in the butt.
It is written usually on the container or bag when you get the wire nuts what those nuts are rated for, how many wires and the size that wires that they're compatible with. So check that.
Is the color system universal?
I don't think
brands?
it is across brands. No.
It seems pretty consistent, though, to me. Yellows and reds are the most common in my work.
Yeah. I like the ones that have, those. There's certain ones that you just buy, like the nice premium ones that have little wings to make you comfortable on your fingers.
Yeah.
And they handle such a wide range somehow.
And they hold better, the good ones.
Yeah.
I hate the cheap ones, too, because they're too big. They make the diameter larger so it's easier to twist instead of putting the wings on, but then ends up taking a lot more space in the box.
Mm-hmm.
I saw, so this is, my wife Erin was making fun of me last night because I went to use some super glue for something, and she bought this super glue gel stuff, and I take the top off. It's like a little squeeze bottle. I take the squeeze top off, the hard plastic cap off, and I'm trying to squeeze it out of there, and I'm like, it looks like there's a hole in the end of this thing. So I guess not. I guess it's just a divot. And I'm like, well, where's the needle on the end of the cap to poke it? That doesn't have it on this one. And it's not on the flip side of the cap. And so I was like, all right, I'll get a little pair of scissors, and I snipped it off. And I'm still trying to squeeze it. Nothing's coming out. And I'm going, what the hell is happening here? And then I actually looked at the directions. and this thing is designed so that you spin the cap tighter, and it ratchets. And you hear like this clicking sound. They said do it until the clicking sound stops, and that's how you puncture. And then so you spin it all the way down tight, and then you back it off, and now it's poked its hole in the nozzle.
So you ruined
and you're ready
it.
to go. No, it still worked, but I was like, this is the coolest product ever. I was like, look how they figured out this design. She's like, you gonna tell everyone about it? And I was like, no. And here I am telling everyone about it. I think it was Loctite.
What were you gluing?
I was gluing the little letter C that fell off of my faucet handle.
The cold.
The C for cold. And yes, I understand there's a screw under there I need access to, but based on the track record of this thing falling off, I'm not too worried about being able to pop it off if I need to.
That'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yes, it has seen a lot of different types of glue. Yeah, so it's sort of my
This is a
ongoing
great
experiment.
test. Yeah, this is a great test.
Loctite, if you want to sponsor.
Yeah. So for my garage build, I did my favorite thing yesterday. I set up the framing plans on pen and paper, and I sent them over to the folks at Weyerhaeuser and asked them to help me size beams
Nice.
and floor joists. And
Did you do this through a local lumber yard?
I didn't. I just did this first go around right to the truss joist tech support, which they have buried a little bit more. You can't really access it the way you used to
On the
which
web.
Which
You
I'm
did this
guessing
on the
is,
web.
Yeah, which I'm guessing is an encouragement to no longer contact us. Go through
A dealer.
A dealer. But it's great. I mean, it's free. They give you they run your calculations for you, give you engineered solutions that are you can bring to the code official.
Yeah, and they take into account wind loads and weird stuff for your particular geographic area, right?
Yep.
That's
Yep.
cool.
I'm playing with the idea. At least I'm going to price it as using engineered lumber, like I-joists for both the floor and the roof. I'm playing with the idea for the roof. I know it requires more hardware.
The eave connection seems difficult to me.
Well, you just have to you have to pad them out, right? Pad out the flange so that it has solid bearing.
Yeah, and there's no bird's mouth per se, right?
Yeah, it might just, but that's okay. I mean, especially if you're doing something like exterior foam. I mean, you don't want an overhang anyway. You want to apply it yourself. And I haven't decided what I'm doing there yet, but I at least want to price it because so it's like that would be a pain, right? But then you think about, all right, if you did a really good job with creating a vented roof, those flanges would be so great to work with because you could just take a piece of OSB or something and span between the two, fasten it right there solid, and you have what, an inch and a half
gap,
of pure airflow uninterrupted all the way up the roof without having to do much extra work.
Make sure that you tell them you're doing that because the nailing schedule they might want to specify so you're not weakening the flange with that additional nailing.
You think it would be that?
It's closer to the edge than the sheathing would be on the other side. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be in the center of the flange where this is going to be on the side.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, though, like the kind of thing that I would be putting up is going to be mostly glued because you're going to want to have a sealed connection. So I'm thinking it would be like a bead of construction adhesive or that foam.
Yes.
Like the Huber Advantech foam, and then just enough like Girton does, just
to hold it there.
staples or something to hold it until it dries.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think? Am I going to blow the budget on that, Patrick? If you start factoring in the cost of I-joist, cost of the
didn't you
hardware?
also say you wanted a loft?
Yes.
So I think that's going to be problematic with the I-joist, if assuming you're attaching to the sides of the joist.
Assuming you're attaching to the sides of the joists.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, the loft. It's more like a second floor.
Okay.
It comes off of the top plates of a wall.
So you're not using like what would be collar ties as the floor system.
No. But have you done anything with I-joist roofs?
No. It always struck me as very complicated.
Yes. What do you think they're going to ding me for cost-wise? I
bet it's 3 times the cost of sawn lumber.
Come on.
We'll see. Between the connectors and the joists themselves, yeah.
But you don't mean... So you mean just in general, like floor joist for an I-joist? You think it's a 3-to-1?
As rafters, yes. I don't think
not for
I-joist for a floor system, no, because the connectors are very simple for that.
Well, you only need connectors at the top, at the ridge.
You're going to need some kind of, top plate connection too.
I don't know. I wonder if it wouldn't just you'd pack it out and it would just bear and you'd fasten through it. But I don't know.
I think it's more complicated than that, but I'll be curious to see what they design for you.
I'm in that tough place where after working here for so long, it's like...
You know too much.
Well, it's that, but it's also like you want to just build it out of 2x8s, 2x10s, and, regular old stuff. And then you go, man, I've been sitting here on this podcast for 132 episodes talking about how to do it the right way. So maybe I ought to, not balk at an extra $1,000 and do it the way that I'm going to be like psyched about. And
it's fun to try new things.
It is. It's also like I'm really curious after having thought about the merits of this venting technique for so long to actually try it and go, well, that actually sucked, or it was a problem for this reason,
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, let's, now that we've inspired everyone with confidence, let's answer some questions, huh?
Let's do it.
All right. Question 1, I will lovingly call, what's up with the price of cedar? Tim writes, as I'm sure you guys do, I love me some raw cedar siding shake. But everything I'm working with siding-wise is painted, so the hardy boards and stuff like that are used mostly here. I'm concerned more about everything else cedar is great for like trim and what does that mean? Sorry. What prompted my question was a builder I'm working with in Austin recently blew his budget because cedar prices jumped on him because he had all cedar trim, fascias, and a fence. Now he's talking about using pine as an alternative, which sounds like a crappy solution to me. The mill my own cheap rough lumber thing I've only tried for simple woodworking projects so far. But if some knots are okay and this works great, sorry, this is like the classic poorly worded question. But I can't see this working for trim or even a decent fence. So he would like, Tim was wondering if we could just riff on cedar prices, cedar and alternatives, and the idea of milling your own lumber. And it's funny because right before I wrote down this question, I was like, I think it'd be cool to talk on the show about how you guys would feel about milling your own lumber on site for a project, like with a wood miser or something like that. And I thought, nah, let's not do that. And then I put this question down, and it essentially is the question. So I guess we are going to do that. It's been a while since I bought cedar. I didn't know that the price jumped, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine how high it could have jumped because it was already insane to start with.
Well, this is actually, I guess it's kind of a timely question because the reason that and other softwoods have jumped is because of the tariffs. And so, I don't know how much
we get a
wanna,
lot
really
of our
get into
softwoods
that.
from Canada.
Yeah,
And
28% of the softwoods that are used in America come from Canada. And so the fact that the tariffs went into effect, I think in December, has driven up prices on all softwood lumber, including cedar, by
And
a
softwood
considerable amount.
prices were high historically because of storms
Right, and forest fires.
and forest fires. So they were already high, and then now they're higher.
Right.
So NAHB has actually kind of been trying to push back on this, as well as some of the Canadian producers. The American producers are making a killing off of this. So
They're not pushing.
Yeah. So there are Canadian companies that are trying to get exemptions from some of this for cedar specifically because they're saying it's a completely different product, the appearance grade cedar, than
dimensional framing lumber,
which is totally correct. But there's probably not going to be any resolution on that, at least until after the election.
Okay.
So that's going to drag on for quite a while. But the prices have spiked. I mean, compared to the same time last year, we're talking probably on an order of about $75 for the index, which kind of rates a whole bunch of things, not just the price of cedar. But you're looking at least a 7% increase, and it was even higher. Everything peaked in June, and it's come down considerably since then. But it's still, I don't know, something like 20% higher or something like that.
So 75% on the index equates to 20% difference. At
Well,
the
that would be a
cash register?
$75. So they look at a basket of things, and it's at now $411, right? Yeah, as of yesterday, I think it was at $411 for this basket of materials. And the same time last year, it was $375.
Okay.
So are those all
Or actually last $325.
sawn materials, or are they all manner of building materials?
They're looking at, I think, all manner. My impression was, and I didn't dig into it as deeply as I probably should have, but they're talking about sheet goods and all kinds of softwood imports.
You're already dug into it deeper than Patrick and I did, so I wouldn't feel nervous.
Yeah. But NAHB, anyway, they're saying for the lumber specifically is adding about $9,000 to the cost of a typical house in the U.S.,
I can't
which
imagine.
is just an insane amount of money.
So we should tell our listeners who are professionals to add material escalation clauses to their contracts, right? So you guarantee pricing for materials for a very short period of time, usually based on the guarantee of pricing that your lumberyard has given you, and you tell your clients about that and make sure they're aware. And that gets them to make a decision quickly so you can put stuff on order so you can lock in the pricing so you don't have the problems this gentleman described where the pricing went up and he wasn't ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, any bid that I've ever given for something was 30 days. 30 days, and then after that, we're going to revisit the pricing.
I've heard of guys that I follow on Facebook who are doing 2-week material escalation clauses. So because the stuff has been so volatile.
Yeah.
It's one of the most maddening things where you suck. This guy bids a house using cedar siding. It takes a huge jumps in cost, and he loses his shirt, and then you go to the lumberyard a month later, and it's even lower than it was when you bid it, and you're like, oh my god, it's it makes you kind of mental for home projects too, because 1 week sheathing is this, and the next week it's twice as much. And if it happens to time out that you're ready to buy, you get hosed.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's. But I guess there's nothing to be done about it.
Those are commodities, right? The prices of commodities changes every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hitting other stuff too. I mean, it's hitting nails. nails
Because of steel.
Because of steel, yeah. And
Listen, nails are a huge part of a project in terms of cost. Like, especially if you're going into something like, well, fasteners in general. But I mean,
metal connectors.
oh my God! And like, if you build a deck, it's like people talk so much about the framing lumber and then the decking, and like the fasteners are so expensive.
Hundreds of dollars, right?
Yeah, it's like it accounts for a huge percentage of the project, but it's almost like an afterthought.
It's easy to forget about for sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, mill your own lumber.
Yeah,
Do it.
man.
Do it.
I'd love to have a wood miser.
Yeah.
So you may remember I bought rough sawn pine.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
That came from a mill, and I had to straighten the edges and put a rabbet on for a shiplap.
Yep.
And I don't know if I'd do that again because it was really labor intensive and backbreaking work.
But what was the cost savings?
Boy, that's hard to say. But I remember paying about between $2 and $4 a board foot for the material. So I don't know what square foot of cedar 1x would be right now per board foot, but
So you probably came out about the same once you added in your labor of having to deal with it. Not to mention those boards were gorgeous and you used them for side. Are they siding or are they covered up?
they're siding.
All right,
Yeah.
that's a little better.
And it's actually the best. This is my favorite aspect of the barn. I was looking at it the other day. I was like, that looks really nice.
Yeah.
It looks.
Yeah,
It was a splurge that made sense.
I don't know. I mean, what do you guys? I mean, there's always going to be somebody buying cedar for sure, but I don't know. The man-made alternatives just seem so good now.
You mean fiber cement?
Fiber cement, fly ash. I would love to have a budget that I was able to use that for.
It just doesn't have the same look.
Fly ash does.
Looks like cedar.
Well, maybe not for. I guess I'm thinking of cedar beveled siding, but if we're talking about shakes and shingles, then
Boards.
then I can
rough on boards.
Yeah, I get it. And there's areas of the country where that's it. You just do that. But
as an alternative, I mean, hemlock is not bad if you're doing board and batten. I mean, that lasts pretty well.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's looking for other sort of like durable wood alternatives or.
You could get into hardwoods. But if you're talking about shakes and shingles, it's like you're not going to have that many options.
it's
People
only-
aren't making them.
Cedar.
Yeah.
It is cedar.
So,
I
but
wouldn't do that
he
in
talks
mine.
about trim and fascias and fencing. I would have no problem switching to a different material for those things because you can get a lumber yard or a hardwood supplier to mill those up, and it won't necessarily be expensive. But if you're talking about shakes and shingles, you're kind of limited unless you want to paint. And then you broaden yourself a little bit. There's something like New Cedar, NU Cedar is the name of that company, and they make gorgeous looking fake cedar shingles that are absolutely convincing. It's just that they're
Expensive.
They're painted and they're expensive, yes, but they look awesome. So the real question becomes: wood miser or Alaskan chainsaw mill?
I've watched a few YouTube videos very recently with people with chainsaw mills, and it looks exhausting.
Yeah.
I mean, pushing a 3 or 4 foot chainsaw through a log.
Yeah,
It takes a long time.
you got to get a special chain for the thing too.
Yeah, you want to get a ripping chain.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use a shorter bar, but if you're trying to cut through big logs, you do need a big saw. And even to go through a smaller log, they recommend like a really pretty beefy sized motor on that thing.
I wonder though, if you wanted to get a wood miser, how quick you could justify it if you had time to do jobs with it. Like, hey, you got a tree that came down, I'll come to your property, and for this day rate, I'll mill it up for you.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people try to do with those.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. A lot of people do that. And so if you want to rip your own lumber or make your own lumber, just have some guy who already has one of those
Exactly.
come over, rent his time and machine.
It seems like a slippery slope. You're not just buying the wood miser, too. You're going to need a tractor with forks on it to handle the logs. You're going to need a space to store the wood while it air dries, or you're going to need a kiln, to dry it. It seems like it's not just about cutting up wood.
Well, you always got to ruin the party, Patrick.
I thought about it a lot.
If you got a lot of time,
there is an appeal.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's
Got
like
a lot of
it's
time,
like
just let it air dry.
I think I would rather spend my money on a tractor that I could do a lot of stuff with than a wood miser. But
I think you need a friend with a wood miser.
yes,
Yeah.
somebody who's not using it very often, and they're like, "Sure, you want to borrow it? Just come pick it up." Yeah.
But that chainsaw mill takes forever. Even with a ripping chain, it takes forever.
But it's cheaper.
It's
way cheaper.
There's a lot more waste though too, because
Sure.
that blade or that chain is pretty wide. But yeah, it is.
What does
cheaper.
a wood miser cost? Do you know?
I don't.
Thousands.
Yeah,
I can't remember if it's
looking
like
up
5
used
or
ones.
10 or what,
Yeah.
though.
I think the cheapest ones are like 2, but they're just they're a much smaller operation.
Yeah, and that little Granville, the chainsaw mill is under
Hundreds,
$100.
right?
No, it's like under $100, I think.
And then you're going to
but
spend
then you gotta
$1,000 on a chainsaw.
Yeah, you got to spend at least probably $500-$600 on a decent saw.
Yeah, this isn't bad. Come on, guys. You could buy a portable one for $2,200.
Oh, there you go.
I think you should get it, Justin.
Yep, do
7 horsepower Kohler gas engine.
Awesome.
Wait, hold on. I'm going to see how big of a log it does. Everybody else, you just have to deal with the fact that I'm going to look this up while we're on the show.
So I think it'd be cool to like take smaller diameter logs you could actually maybe handle with, some friends to make timbers, to make a timber frame.
This is 22-inch diameter.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm with
Not
you.
bad.
See, like then
Yeah.
it becomes more appealing. It's like if you're going to build a barn, and you have a bunch of trees, then, or you can get logs dropped at your property. Then it's like, all right, I spent $2,200 or $5,000 and had a lot of fun, made a bunch of timbers.
And then you
know.
sell it.
Yeah, and then what's the resale on? It's got to be good,
You'd sell it to one of your friends who's been lusting after it for.
right? I mean, I'm pretty sure I would lose a finger, but I mean that's kind of just par for the course. Well, all right, so maybe we can just call them up and see if we can get a wood miser to play with. Just be like, hey, Fine Home Building wants to try.
There's
wood
a
miser.
ton of lovely hardwood timber on the Taunton property too.
Yes, there is. All right, we got a video, and this is a little bit of a long one. But
Matt and I watched this earlier.
but it's long because there's a lot of stuff in it to talk
Yeah.
about. So hit it, Jeff.
This is Cooper from Niskayuna, New York, and I have a question about my garage. This is the 5th house that my beautiful wife Emily and I have owned in our 21 years in the military. Hopefully it's our forever house, and there's some things that I really want to change about this garage. Is that it's a disaster mess in there. You can see I've got my my tool shed coming along there in the yard,
Zip
so
system
eventually
for
we'll
the
get
tool
this
shed?
place cleaned
needs
out.
more
But there's a
tools.
couple of issues that you see as soon as you walk in. One is the floor, which is constantly feels wet or is sweating. I'm assuming that's just because it's an uninsulated slab and it's just
Where'd this
reacting
guy
with
say
the
he was?
humidity.
Niskayuna,
but I don't know if
New
there's any
York,
way to
so near Schenectady.
prevent
Okay.
that from happening. If a floor covering or a paint or even some sort of a mat over it would help make it feel a little bit drier.
It's got a floor drain.
The big issue is the ceiling, though. Obviously the air conditioning supply and return ducts run through the garage. This is the supply over here and the return over here.
You want to hit that pause button
There's
for a second
two
here,
bedrooms
Jeff?
and a bathroom over the garage. The two bed.
I just wanted to catch people up. So if you want to watch this video, it's at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. But for people who are not watching the video, just to catch you up, we're looking inside a 2-car garage attached to a house, and it appears to have a wet, damp-looking slab, and also 2 big duct runs that are coming from the house across the ceiling of the garage and probably feeding an upstairs bedroom, I'm guessing. So just want to catch you up. Go ahead.
Rooms belong to some of our 5 children, and their floors are very cold in the winter. And I know you all have some great articles online about fixing that, but the one thing I'm not sure how to address are these joist spans. The whole house, the returns are joist spans that need to be taken away. Obviously, I don't want these sucking air from the garage, and they're just not very efficient. Likewise, would like some advice on insulation. There's just a little bit of fiberglass, foil-faced fiberglass here, and then you can see one of the supply ducts in there, and this is just streaming with cold air coming out of this hole right here. So that's obviously a problem.
Is a duct even
The house
like connected?
is a very odd split level. It's got a lot of levels, so this is actually part of the foundation wall, so there's earth behind this part of the brick that you can see sticking out from the wall there. I'm not sure how to address that, if I should insulate over that as well, just for its small little bit of exposure. There's a door here, a small one that goes into the basement. It's hollow core, so that's super not up to code. which walks into the workroom in the basement, a couple steps down right there. You can see the air handler all the way back there at the end of the basement. And then, of course, it goes here into the garage, or into the house as well. There's a step up here, a crawl space underneath this room in here that then goes up to the rest of the house.
That wood paneling is on
Obviously,
point.
we want to rip off all of this beautiful wood paneling drywall and clean up the space and insulate it. So really, I guess my questions are, number one, insulation. Obviously, spray foam would be our best bet, but if that's not in the budget, would I be better off doing cut and cobble tight against the underside of the floors above, and then stuffing with rock wool, or would I be better off putting rock wool up first and then doing a continuous layer of foam, 1.5 inch foam on the ceiling right here in the garage, and then covering that with drywall? The second question is about the air conditioning. What's the best way to handle those panned joist returns and making sure that these ducts get as insulated as possible inside the garage here? And lastly, any other advice that you guys have about how to handle this garage space under the living space? Thanks a lot. Really appreciate and love the show. You guys are doing a great job, and thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long question, but that's because there's so many parts that are all kind of feeding each other. And if you gave us any one of those on its own, we would have said we need more information. So where do you want to start?
Let's start by, until he gets this fixed, do not use the garage for your car, starting up the vehicle.
Yeah,
with the panned ducts especially, and holes in the ceiling would be sucking carbon monoxide and spreading it through the rest of the house.
So for people who don't know what a panned duct is, it essentially means using your framing,
The joist cavity.
the joist bay, to act as a return duct for your HVAC system.
And
so instead of having a dedicated duct for air coming from your house back to the furnace or air conditioner, it's using wood on two sides, subfloor on the top, and then a sheet of metal on the bottom. They're a terrible idea.
Terrible.
My parents have that in their house.
Mine too. It was the thing to do for a long time, but
Yep.
we don't do that anymore, hopefully.
Yeah. And what's the concern there?
The static losses of the wood, in essence, ductwork, is much greater than metal. It also is not airtight.
So basically the airflow is going to be
Is poor,
severely
yes.
cut back. And yeah, the leakage.
The leakage is terrible.
I mean, that's the air going back to the furnace. So,
Where is it coming from?
That means it's being sucked.
Yeah, from all over the house.
So if the air is being pulled through that duct, you want it to only be pulling through the register that's in the house. That's the open spot. So if you don't seal the ductwork, now it would be like having a hole in your vacuum hose. Like, you want all of the air in your vacuum to be sucked from the end where you're trying to suck up dirt, in this case return air. But if you have a bunch of unplanned holes in the hose of the vacuum, now you're pulling air from everywhere else, reducing the amount that it's pulling from the house and potentially sucking up some crappy stuff from other places. In this case, probably the worst place.
The garage. Where you have not only the car, but the stored chemicals and paint solvents and that kind of stuff. So.
Yep. Not to mention that it's outside your conditioned envelope of the house. So it's not. That was the part that I'm a little confused with the question is he proposing it sounded like he's proposing, how do I insulate the garage and just make it part of the insulated structure of the house, right?
I think that would make sense.
It would make sense, except for the fact that you have a car parked in it.
Right.
So, so your barrier to me would be the walls of the garage and the ceiling. That's what I would be focusing my effort on, insulating those, so that your bedroom above is protected and so that you're not losing too much heat to the unconditioned garage from the walls of the house.
Yeah.
The only way to solve his damp slab problem, though, is to lower the humidity or raise the temperature of the slab, right? Because we're assuming it's either water vapor coming from under the slab, and without a plastic vapor retarder, there's no way to stop that. You could probably putting a coating on the slab. But my guess is that because it's unconditioned space, the slab is cool, it's a condensing surface, so that's where the water's coming from.
Right. It's not. Yeah. It's likely not oozing up from underneath. it's I mean, in the in the video, the guy's very clearly sweating up a storm. So I'm sure I was curious immediately. Well, does this happen year round? Or you're talking about, you leave the garage door open in the summer and you're getting condensate, you're getting a soggy slab. Like, that answers your question.
It's humid in New York, guys.
Yeah, it's humid and you're getting condensation.
To know if it's coming from under the slab, you can tape a piece of plastic to it, correct? And look for water vapor on the underside of the plastic.
Right. If you get it between the plastic and the concrete, then you know it's coming from the concrete. If you get it on top of the plastic, the outside of the plastic, then you know it's
air.
It's coming from the surrounding air. All right, so
he wants to insulate the floor?
Mm-hmm. What do you mean? The ceiling?
The ceiling. I'm sorry, the living space floor, right? The ceiling above the garage.
So what's going on is he's got joists above his garage and some drywall and some of the worst wood paneling ever. There's 2 supply ducts, rectangular supply ducts that run from the house across the ceiling of the garage and up. Those are on the exposed side of the drywall. But then the pan duct, the return, is behind the drywall in the framing. So step 1, I guess, would be to just open everything up, right?
I think so.
Not to mention that his bat insulation is installed backwards. So that's another good reason. And did you see when he peeled it back how poorly fit it was?
Yeah.
Like there's like the little metal brackets holding up a duct in the joist bay, and this was applied outside of that, just kind of like bent around metal.
Yeah. And it's just compressed in a garbage installation.
It's not thick. It's not thick enough, even if it was installed right.
Well, that's the thing. I couldn't tell how deep his joists were. They almost looked like 2x6s, which seems unlikely. But
he had a big steel beam running through the middle of the garage.
Through the middle of the garage. So maybe it's possible.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They're very light sleepers, Matt.
Yeah.
Jeff, come on. Light sleepers?
So ideally, they would pull out the panned returns and put real ductwork in the floor system.
Right, you already have 2 sticking out on the finished side of the drywall, so why not just put a third one there?
Yeah.
And then maybe just frame a dropped ceiling. Like, for
or
something. This is
chase around them.
This is where my brain is going. He's got a big metal beam going across his garage. I might be tempted to scab something onto that to suspend suspend joists that run from wall to wall and tie into that beam at the center for to support it from sagging, and then insulate that. Almost like you're creating a suspended insulated
the new joist
ceiling.
would be on the bottom side of the beam. Do you think he has enough headroom for that?
It's a garage. I mean, how much do you? It seemed like it. I don't know. I'd have to look at it again. Jeff, can you play it back without any sound, just so we can look at the? I would think he'd have headroom in a garage, right?
I mean, how is he going to use the space, I guess, would be my question.
And
Does he really need it to be?
He's got to have room for the garage door, right? You can't drop the ceiling too low.
Right. Well, but I mean, so what's the alternative? I mean, if he wants to insulate,
I would try moving the ductwork into the floor system, but both the supply and the return.
So now you've got 3 huge ducts. Wait a second. That's why they're okay.
Yeah, he's got 2 running one direction and the return's running the other direction. Yeah.
So that's why they're on the outside of the floor system.
Because they can't go. Because the joists go the other way.
Yeah.
He's got a conundrum.
So they have to be in a chase.
He's got to frame something down, either to surround those exposed ducts, or they're going to be energy penalties. Period. I guess you could box them in with rigid foam board or something like that.
Or the alternative is to bring the garage into the conditioned space, right? And then the ducts are inside the envelope.
Sure doesn't solve the car being inside a conditioned envelope to me, though. Now you've got that same problem that you started with.
Absolutely.
So
get rid of the furnace and air conditioner.
Put mini splits in.
Put in mini splits or a boiler and some
honestly
room air units.
Once you start to go down this road, it might make more sense to just decommission those ducts. or find some other way to run them.
That's what I was wondering, if there's another place to put them.
No, they definitely put them in the most attractive place.
What?
I mean, like in terms of installation
Yeah.
being easy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're allowed to have wood paneling in a garage. I'm pretty sure you're not, so that's another concern.
Yeah, well, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to have a hollow core door either.
Yeah, it's all bad. I think the spray foam in the ceiling, if he's going to keep the garage outside the envelope, is a good idea. I think alternatively bats and a layer of foam on the bottom would be a good idea too,
Right.
to stop the thermal bridging.
But I mean, so what's the best you can get for duct insulation if they have to stay on the outside of the envelope? Like R8 or 10 maybe?
Yes, I believe it's
that-
8.
And so we're compromising what should be 30 something as being an 8. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can gang some ducts together into one section, like, and create one big insulated soffit that you can really
That's what I was
protect
thinking.
them from, rather than having 3 separate ones everywhere. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go. This is a tricky one. Number one, so I'm going to prioritize here. Number one, I wouldn't worry about the slab. That's off my list. And I would not bring the garage into the thermal envelope. One, because if you want to get rid of the moisture problems in the slab, you need to add insulation to that.
To the floor.
And then you can't drive a car on it, at least without.
Or you'd have to go underneath the slab.
Right. So we're not doing that. So I think you're insulating the walls and the ceiling. Step one for that would be drop everything. Drywall, wood paneling, get it out of there. Sorry, you have to clean the garage first. I would get rid of that pan duct and fix that. If I had to re-insulate and stop there and just suck up the fact that my ducts were outside of the insulated assembly, I would swallow that pill before I would go a different route to try and solve that problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this is a show on opinion, so you guys can do it different. You can
I'd
have
love
a
to know
different
if there's
view.
a different place to run the ductwork, because I would start there. I would try and get the ducts out of the garage, because it's a serious life and safety issue, and try and run the duct somewhere else and then insulate the ceiling.
But I mean, you saw the structure of the house. It's not
I'd be tempted to go into the attic with the ductwork.
go straight up and then drop down.
Or another air handler or mini splits.
Mini splits are awfully attractive.
Yeah.
You don't need to deal with any of this duct work. You just have one on the first floor, one on the second floor, maybe, and then you're done. I know this guy out in New York you could talk to. His name's Matthew Milham, and he would be happy to come over to your house and do all of this for
He
you.
works really cheap.
It's actually part of his contract here at Fine Home Building that he has to do this work for free. So if he tries to ask for money, tell him that he cannot have any.
I've actually got a friend who lives not too far from this guy, one town over, I think.
You poo-poo like breaking up the slab, but like, I mean, how much is that? $1,000 worth of concrete compared to like moving the ducts and,
Yeah, but it doesn't solve the car problem. So how are you getting around that?
You mean that you shouldn't have a car in your internal garage?
Well, if you've moved the insulation boundary to the outside of your walls, so now the garage is inside the house. How is it any different than you parking your car in your living room?
It's not. I mean, it's still undesirable.
So which one is more desirable?
It depends on if he wants it as a garage for his car or a workshop.
Sure, workshop I don't care about.
Yeah.
That's fine. Maybe a little sign somewhere for the next person who owns it.
Don't park in here. There are products too
Open the door if you feel sleepy.
that have fans that
Yes.
go on with the garage door opener, for
Yes.
example, and evacuate the exhaust fumes when you pull the car in or start it up.
We did one of those in, I think Tamarack makes that.
Yeah.
We did one of those in the first pro home we did in Rhode Island, and Mike Gurton had one in the garage. And I can't remember if it worked on a timer or on the garage door opener. I want to say it was a garage door opener.
And I
that,
think
like-
it's on a timer. It stays on
Like-
for a few minutes after the car's in there.
Right. So the way it works is when you open or close the garage, that's the signal to the system that, hey, you've either started your car and you're backing out, or you pulled in the garage and you shut it off. So we might have some exhaust in here we have to deal with, and this little through wall vent will kick on for however many minutes, change the air over, and then you're done. That's actually a great idea. That's a good idea, Patrick. I would consider that as an option, at least a feel good option. Like, hey, I can't make this perfect because I'm not designing from scratch, so I can do a little bit of a belt and suspenders cobble job a little of this, a little of that.
It's safer for the family, right?
Yeah.
And
Carbon monoxide detector goes without saying here.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's not just that like
But what would you do, Matt?
pulling in and out. It's people leave their cars running all the time, especially with the key fobs and electronic ignitions now. Like and they're so quiet.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there is obviously heat loss through that floor, but I think if he got all those ducts out of there, spray foamed like he said he wanted to, put some 5/8" fire rated drywall back up on that ceiling.
Yeah.
And, got all that ductwork out of there, put in mini splits or a boiler and some room air conditioners if you wanted to go that route. And I think then I'd call that a day. I think that's a good solution.
You could also do bats or something in the cavities and then like a layer of rigid foam on the interior side of the framing.
Yeah, because I don't know what the heat loss is through that, but he
You can't tell from looking at the video?
Heat tends to go up, not down. I mean, it'll radiate through that floor system. But, they're saying it's cold in the winter, I think was the issue.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the floor is freezing underfoot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Get some wall-to-wall carpeting.
Yeah. That's another option. But yeah, I don't think you need
Slippers are really cheap.
Yeah, make sure you install that insulation facing the right direction for one.
Vapor barrier pointed towards the warm in winter side.
Yeah.
And get rid of that.
Unless you're in the south. In a cooling climate, it goes the other way.
Well, but that's still the warm in winter side.
I'm just saying, it's
warm outside in the winter there.
True.
Yes, you're right. Yeah. Or just don't get anything with a vapor barrier on it, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Except your code enforcement officer is probably going to make you, right? It's just, that's a reality.
Yeah. Okay. That's it. Let me get the next question going. That was a marathon.
What was that guy's name?
I don't know. I didn't write it down. Jeff, what was his name?
Cooper.
Cooper.
Good
That's
luck,
right.
Cooper.
Yeah.
Let us know what happens. What you do.
Yeah, nobody follows up with us and tells us how our advice works out. I wonder why.
Yeah.
They hit that
divorce.
unsubscribe button. Ben wrote to us, I can't believe this has never come up on the show, but I want to hear some East Coast versus West Coast framing discussion. Do you all prefer sidewinders or worm drives, stick nailers or coil, etc.? Did we ever talk about this, Jeff?
I'm pretty sure we talked about the Sidewinder.
Yeah.
Worm
It
drive.
seems like we wouldn't have gone this long without doing it.
Yeah.
We should start by saying that there is a traditional preference for worm drive versus Sidewinder based on where you live because of the early distribution of the two products. One was more available on the East Coast, the Sidewinder, and then the worm drive was more available on the West Coast.
Which is interesting because they were both made by Skillsaw. I mean, right? I mean, weren't they the first worm drive too?
I don't
was the
believe
first
so.
worm drive?
I don't know.
I thought it was Skill.
But I was just reading about this recently because we had this thing on our Facebook page and somebody asked, well, what happened? Why is there one more common on one coast than the other? And
That was the answer?
The answer is that just geography and history.
Yeah. But it breaks down as if you're on the East Coast side of the country, you're most likely using a skill saw or a sidewinder as is kind of the generic term for it. And then if you're on the West Coast, you're using a worm drive.
What do you use?
What do you guys use is the question.
I use a hypoid. Just to be,
You use a worm drive.
it's a worm drive made by Makita, and it doesn't have a worm gear in it, but it's configured the same way. And I've had it for a long time.
So is that just so you don't have to worry about the oiling thing?
So my dad bought this as a graduation present for me in 1994, and it was, I'm a huge guy, right? So I could have used any saw I wanted to, but my dad very smartly recognized that a lighter saw, would be less fatiguing even for a big, huge guy like myself.
Yeah.
So it's a few pounds lighter than the original Mag 77 worm drive.
Yeah.
So that's how I ended up with that.
And that's what you use across the board. Do you own a sidewinder?
I do, but they don't have a cord.
So that's. I don't believe anybody yet has a. Does Makita have a hypoid cordless?
Yeah.
They do. Okay.
Yep. Well, it's not a hypoid though. It's once again it's set up like a worm drive, but it actually has a sidewinder arranged motor, but it's got a handle in the back.
Right. They call them a sidewinder because it's the motor is in line with the blade.
Right.
The motor spins, the blade spins. A worm drive or a hypoid, the motor is perpendicular to it, and it uses gearing to turn that right angle to spin the blade.
I like the worm drive arrangement because I like being able to reach all the way across a sheet of plywood.
Yes.
It is a huge advantage. I also like being able to see when I'm cutting. I like the blade on the left.
Yes.
But it's heavier, and that's the downside.
I really like being able to take a 2x4 off a pile, support it with my left foot while I cut across it with my right hand with the worm drive.
Yep.
It's like it's just a very natural using the weight of the saw to get the job done. It is very satisfying from a power point of view. I feel like the high torque and slower speed of the worm drive is just very it's preferable to me over a Sidewinder. That said, I have used both extensively, have both. If I had to use a Sidewinder, I have had good luck with the 7 1/4 Makita. I like that one a lot. But there's also do you remember that Rigid that came out, the Rigid Fuego?
Yes.
Was
it
it like
6.5?
6.5, I think?
Yes.
That thing is awesome.
I've heard that.
It's
The thing about that one is it spins faster than an ordinary Sidewinder, so it cuts more quickly.
Yes, it's very light. It does everything your other saws do, except like maybe a very tiny compromise in terms of cutting depth on the bevel and straight. That doesn't seem to show its downsides very often. Like it's not a realistic problem. And I remember Rick Arnold was the first one who reviewed it in our magazine. And it was the first T&M review that I read where he said, I really would not change anything about this tool. And it was just like, it struck me as, wow.
I hope they still have that because we're talking it up.
I'm sure somebody can find one, right?
What do you have,
Craigslist.
Matt?
I've got the same thing you've got. I've got the Makita Hypoid.
Really?
Which I love. Yeah, that thing's great. And I also have the Milwaukee Fuel Sidewinder, which I also like, but would love if it were blade left. And Milwaukee now has a few of the smaller blade left battery op saws, but their only full size or 7 1/4 is a corded saw. And I'm just waiting for them to come out with like the full size Fuel blade left Sidewinder because I would love that.
So they have a fuel blade right, don't they?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
And
okay.
that's what I have. And it works great. I love it.
But
I
you
love
like
it
to
for the
see the
weight.
blade.
Why did they
I wanna
set
be
up
able to
all the
sit-
cordless circular saws with the blade left, though? What is the story
what I
behind
don't
that?
I don't
understand.
understand that either.
I mean, I like it,
Me too.
obviously, and they used to have a Porter Cable corded circ saw that was blade left, and
Sawboss.
it was I don't remember the name of it. It had like a little dust port in the front that you could open. Do you remember that one?
So they have like a worm drive that's a trim saw, right? That had like a 4.5 inch
Oh, no, not
blade.
that, not that.
And then
This was one that you could buy either right or left,
yes,
and it was the left hand version of the Sidewinder was awesome, but then not a lot of people made that option. So it was like if you want to be able to see the blade as a right hander, you get a worm drive. If you want to crane your neck and look through a stupid little window between the blade and the,
Yeah.
and the housing, you
I
get a
think
Sidewinder.
I think it has to do with the support, just the way the saw sits on the stock when you're cutting it. You know, if the motor's on the left, then that portion of the saw is supported.
You're right.
And
Because if
with
you're
us,
not going to
it's
put it behind it,
right, it's not as big of a deal with a worm drive because the motor is behind it, so it's in line. It doesn't matter if it's on the right or the left, and it's much more convenient, obviously, for sight purposes to have the blade on the left for a right-hander. So it just in that configuration, put the blade on the left. And I don't know if there are compromises now that they're making blade left Sidewinders that those saws are less stable when you're cutting or what, but.
I don't think there is one available now. PC made that one you're talking about for a long time, but I don't think it exists anymore, and except in the cordless arena.
sounds like a challenge. The Rigid Fuego 12 amp 6.5 inch magnesium compact framing circular saw is still available
Good.
between $100 and $135. So it's a good price.
Yeah.
You got to get one, Patrick. You got to do a Tool Tech video on this thing.
I try and use my cordless saw whenever I possibly can now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, unless it's some weird application, like I want to cut rebar with my Hypoid saw, which is something that we should point out is like, you can cut anything with these worm drive variants. Like I've cut stone with my,
Concrete.
I've concrete, steel. I cut up a steel wood boiler with my hypoid saw. So
Really?
yeah,
Why?
because we had to move it, and it weighed like 2,000 pounds.
Don't you have a reciprocating saw?
Oh, too slow, man, compared to the metal cutting,
cutting
a steel
blade.
cutting
What's
blade
it-
on there.
So you just put in like a fiber blade?
No, carbide steel cutting blade. It's not that unusual anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just picturing you doing it.
Oh,
And
it was
sparks
sick.
flying.
It was sick.
All right. Well, we solved that. Oh, no, we didn't talk about nailers. I don't know if this is so much an East Coast, West Coast thing, though. Stick versus coil. I think most of the country is just stick nailers.
I know the like plastic collated versus wire paper thing
That
is
is
regional.
Yes. I will say that I have a coil framing. I have both. I love the coil framing nailer. I think it's great. People complain that it's too heavy because you're carrying all those nails, but you don't have to reload it hardly at all. I mean, if you're doing something like sheathing, it's like it's awesome because you just load it once and you go. It's a little harder to maneuver into tighter places than a stick nailer when you're doing just generic framing work. So I guess that's a downside, but
Should have both.
yeah, obviously.
It's a no-brainer.
Jeff, how far along are we?
About 55.
We're done. We're done, gentlemen.
Bye.
We'll see you next week for another episode of the Fine Home Building Podcast. You can check us out at finehomebuilding.com/podcast. Give us a review on iTunes. It helps us get that ranking up there so that we can stay in business. And shoot us emails with questions at fhbpodcast@taunton.com. We want to solve your problems. Send us videos, send us photos, send us topics to discuss. Till next week, this is Justin for Jeff, Matt, and Patrick saying keep craft alive and happy building.